Hey guys, and welcome back to Into the Square, your weekly podcast for social issues and current affairs. And today's episode is a bit of a special one. As you can see, we don't have Sanjo today, but we have
Replaced him.
someone. I'd say we replaced him. We have someone a bit better, I think. We've got,
Oh,
we've
the
got.
poor guy.
Nah, he's not. He can't. There's a man. He can't speak for himself. But yeah, as you can hear, we've got a very special guest. She's a published author, fellow podcaster, I'd like to say co-worker, and generally just smashing it in life, is Simran.
I don't know about that last bit, but thanks, guys. Hi.
Hi, welcome
Hi.
back to our. Welcome back. Welcome to our podcast.
Yeah,
Thank
Square.
you.
First
thank
ever
you.
guest as well, actually. So
First ever
it's
guest.
quite an
and
honour,
There
you
you
know.
go. There's a first for everything.
And the first female voice, finally.
Oh,
Not
oh,
just a room
yeah.
full of guys,
Yes. This is what you guys needed.
It's
You needed a
2022.
female voice.
innit? Yeah. We'll replace Sandra, we'll just have you on the podcast. Bun in, bro. Moist
You know your friends when they change around girls, innit? This is Kishor,
Oh,
bro.
is that it? Yeah,
Oh, leave the poor guy alone.
But
So I guess I'll start by explaining. I sort of mentioned it before. I'll start by how I know Simran. She's we work together, so like we're co-workers, and I generally just got to know her. Like it wasn't even that long ago, was it? It was like
No, it was August. We started working together in
Yeah.
August.
that's crazy.
So, yeah. It's gone so quickly, though.
Yeah,
I can't
But
believe
yeah.
you tolerated him for so long, you know.
After this podcast, that's it.
That's when you cut him off.
nothing's changed though, is it? No, but yeah. So we got to know each other, and I just got to like find out how like she's actually like I really got like interested in her life story and what she's achieved. So that's why I thought she'd be a really good guest for our podcast, and especially because the stuff that we're going to talk about, like we talked about in our previous podcast to do with religion, and how like what she's like how she, I thought it'd be interesting to have her on as a guest because of like her religious beliefs, and because we're like all of us we're not that religious, and I thought instead of, because we like to chat a lot of shit in the podcast, we like to like make it seem that we know what we talk about, but then it'd be nice to actually have someone that actually does know what they're talking about instead of just like thinking about it. So that's why. So now I'd like to ask Simran if she could tell a bit about herself as well.
Yeah, so my name is Simran Kaur. I'm the founder of Sikhi Class. I founded Sikhi Class in what feels like ages ago. It was the first lockdown, and it was when everyone was creating cake businesses and doing what they felt was important to them and what they enjoyed the most. And for me, I spent the lockdown just really taking a look into Sikhi again. I had so much time on my hands. Um, I was studying, but everyone knows that studying during lockdown wasn't studying. It was attending online lectures and that too, just about. So I had so much time on my hands, and I thought I would create Sikhi Class, and it was just for me to start with. It was me posting um, little bits about Sikhi, stories, our history, things like that. And eventually it started picking up. People were enjoying what I was posting. I was getting questions as if I knew what I was talking about. And then I started taking it a little bit seriously. I built a team. I worked with two other beautiful individuals. One is my cousin, and one is a very close friend of mine. And they've worked so hard on Sikhi Class as well. They took over Twitter, the TikTok, and I just started opening these social medias for the account, and it just got so hard to look after myself, and they did a really good job at it. And then started a podcast, so it feels very weird to be on this side because I'm normally the one asking the questions. Just asking people questions about Sikhi, so how they got into Sikhi, what their experience was, and sometimes looking into more detailed topics like bullying in Sikhi. That was probably one of my biggest ones. because it had happened just after events where a child had their hair pulled, and in Sikhi you keep your hair, and that was very big, and a lot of people felt it because a lot of people had experienced it before. Also talking about 1984, which is a massive time in Sikhi as well. The Sikh genocide, which was something that if I start going into, I won't stop. So yeah, I started a podcast, and that was going really well. I can't lie, I've taken a little bit of a break from it, but that was because I wrote a book, and the book is doing insanely well. I didn't expect it to do as well as it's doing at the moment, but that took, I'd say, about a year, and a lot of it was taken from things that I'd already posted on Instagram. And these posts, again, they were doing so well, and people were loving them, and people didn't know what they were about. But the 52 hukums were one of the first things that I learned. And I learned them off of Basics of Sikhi. And again, if you're Sikh, you know what Basics of Sikhi is. It's basically a YouTube platform where people talk about topics in Sikhi. Every Sikh grew up on Basics of Sikhi. So yeah, I learned that quite a long time ago and started posting about them again, and then wrote a book about them with Sikhi Colouring, who is my publisher. Ranjit Benji, she works so hard on the illustrations and everything, and she does a lot of my posting work, as in posting them to people's houses, and we've had people purchase from Malaysia, Australia. It's been crazy, it's been non-stop, but yeah, I've loved it.
No, it sounds like
Nice.
yeah.
Sorry, that was such a long introduction as well.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my breath back.
Now it's good to obviously get to know about everything you've done in it, but the thing is, that's actually crazy that you did so much in lockdown, and all I did was just play Fortnite and just sit at home. I didn't even do anything. I just gained weight, and then obviously you just played Fortnite the whole time in lockdown, and you did so much. So that's quite like something to be proud of, actually. And then the fact that you're so like passionate, clearly about it as well, and it shows. And obviously the fact that it's doing well is obviously good. It's like good on you, innit?
Yeah,
and,
Maraj Digir Banal is doing very well. And yeah, I'm so grateful as well. I've just received so much love from it, from the Sangat, which means like our community. So yeah.
No, I do think what you're doing is, absolutely amazing as well, and
Thank you.
especially because like when you were here as like, so obviously like I feel like all four of us kind of grew up here, while our parents kind of migrated from like so ours from Nepal and yours from is from India.
Yeah. from
Yeah.
India,
So, and then the fact is that often we don't really have that discussion of religion, or most immigrant kids don't really connect with their parents about religion and all that. And I guess like you being a voice that they can relate to would help quite a lot of people who grow up here and are part of that immigrant sort of like society, especially in like Sikh culture. So yeah, it's quite inspirational.
Do you know what it is? I feel like I understand the struggle as well. And this links back to the podcast that you guys actually recorded about religion. I understand the struggle with just feeling like you're restricted because of society and like the things that exist nowadays. You know, in Sikhi, we're taught to keep our hair. And for women, that's not easy nowadays. Society doesn't make that easy. So I understand that in some... what's the word? To some extent, it is difficult for individuals to keep their faith. But for me, I grew up in a Sikh household. My mum is so much in love with Sikhi, and I just saw that my whole life. But it wasn't until maybe I was 18 where I started finding Sikhi myself, so my self-led journey, and that was genuinely like from within. So I had that moment in my life, and I'd like to think that everyone will eventually have that moment where they want to find something to believe in, even if it's not God, just an inner feeling of I want to believe in something, even if it's science or whatever it is. But yeah, I understand that a lot of kids nowadays, they don't find it easy to even believe in anything because they always feel kind of restricted by things or by religion, and it is difficult. But I feel like once you get to a point where you fall in love with something, and the way that I've fallen in love with Sikhi, it just doesn't stop from there. You just want to learn more and keep going.
So I had a question. As you discovered religion, what benefits did you see from that, and what were you hoping from your book and your podcast? What benefits would you hope that other people get from it as well?
So for myself, I'd actually started praying when I was 7. We have Bart, which is like what you would recite, and my mum taught me read outside when I was 7, and that was the first Bart that I'd learned. It wasn't up until I was 18 where I was reciting it and actually wanting to understand what was going on and what God was trying to tell me, basically. Prior to that, I was just, how do I put it nicely? I was a rat. I was so irritating. I was annoying. I didn't have no purpose. Honestly, I was at school for just being there. Like, I didn't have an interest in anything. But once I started to get into Sikhi and starting to understand, like, this is what God wants for me, I kind of started to be more determined, more motivated to do things like this. If I didn't find Sikhi, I would never have written a book. I'm not just saying that because my book is about something from Sikhi, but I would just never have taken it in my own interest to even write anything. And I don't know what job I would be working in, but it definitely wouldn't be what I was doing right now. So Sikhi helped me in terms of that, but also I feel like for me, I get angry really easily. My gussa is really bad, and since finding Sikhi, it's calmed down a lot to an extent. It still is bad, but it's something that I'm learning. I feel like everyone who I've spoken to before has said that faith has helped them with a certain emotion, whether that's sadness, like just being depressed, and finding faith and realizing actually there's a way to make yourself feel better through what you learn through your faith. So for me, that was literally what Sikhi did. And your other question was how I felt like my podcast would benefiting other people. I'll be honest, I didn't think they would. I did it for me, and I know that sounds selfish, but it's just turned into seva meaning selfless service. People have just been so in love with the discussions that I have with other people, and I've heard that it's helped people. And in terms of my book, when I wrote this, it was mainly for kids, like so kids could learn more about Sikhi. Because growing up, I didn't have any books to read from. We had one book that my mum had bought from India, and that was the only book that I had growing up. And it would be stories of my sahibs. But again, like I would barely read it. So this was like my way of trying to get kids entertained, and so that they can read it in a way that was fun and like they would understand it. But now I'm hearing that adults are reading my book as well, and I'm just thinking the language in there is so simple. If I knew that adults were going to read it, I would have made it a little bit more complicated. But it's so nice to hear that like people from any age range are enjoying this book and anyone's learning from it.
I had another question as well, actually. I mean, yeah, that's all valid. But another question I had was that, did you like, when you wanted to write, did you write it just because you wanted like kids to get into it more, or like, because you know how like for me personally, like I obviously you've kind of found religion at like a older age kind of thing when you're like in lockdown, so like last year. But like with most people, like it's like instilled in them from like a young age, innit? Otherwise, it's like you don't really come to like a certain age and you think, oh, I'm gonna like change my religion. Even like a lot, like it's like, say for me, like now it's gonna be harder for me to get into religion now. But like when I was younger, we used to watch like, I don't know, I remember Bishop as well. Like we used to watch like when we were kids, like a lot of like these Krishna dog like movies and documentaries and like all these like illustrations that like help you get into it as well, innit? And I still remember some of the content of the movie that I watched, but then I wouldn't remember like reading it in a book, or like, I wouldn't remember like, I would remember stories and I remember like obviously like the illustration and the videos of like the movies and stuff, but I wouldn't remember like, say, like reading like in Hinduism we have like is a Gita, in it, so like I wouldn't remember any of the stories from that book if they were read to me. But obviously if it's in like a children's book, I would like know it better, or like I would like it would like stick with me kind of thing, innit? So I was saying, is that like, would you say that's one of the main reasons why you were like, oh, let me make a children's book like with some illustrations, or like young people like younger now can like get into Sikhi as well? Would you
Do
say?
you know
Or?
what? That's such a fair point. If I was a director, I would have made a film. But do you know what? I've recently got back into reading, and I just read anything. And I used to love reading as a kid. I used to have a bookshelf opposite my bed, and it would just be filled with books, like any type of books. And for me, like the most fun the funnest time that I would have as a kid is getting into bed and reading. I know that makes me sound like a nerd, but as a kid, like I feel like I really enjoyed it. And for me, there was this video actually that was sent by a mother reading my book to her child,
Yeah.
and honestly, it made my heart feel so warm because it was like, this is why I did it. Like this is what I wanted. I wanted parents to be able to sit with their kids and read it to them. I wanted kids to be saying that I want to read that book. I want to read before bed. So yeah, it helps them with reading, but it's also just a really nice bonding moment between a parent and a child. Like I used to have that with my mum, my dad all the time. So it's really nice to see it doing wonders with that, and I think that's why I decided a book would be best. That, and of course I don't have any directing skills, but we'll get there one day.
No, but
Actually,
I think,
there was something that you said. Sorry, Kish. There was something that you said before about how I know that you guys are hosting, but I actually want to ask you a question. You said that as you get older, as you're older now, it would be harder for you to find religion.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say so for me anyway, because like
I
you get
agree as well.
like
No,
unless
I
if you
mean,
go
but like, it's like, for me, I'd see it's like when as you get older in like maybe your 30s, it'll be harder. But then after that, when you're about that age, like middle, then like, you see like because like my parents right now, my dad's like more religious than he was before. Like, you see
yeah,
a
I guess
lot
so.
of, like, all the parents, they're like when they like get to that retiring age, then they like start thinking about like religion and start thinking about like all the stuff, and then they get proper into it.
I mean, that's when they start thinking about karma, and it's just like that's when they
Yeah.
like start thinking about shit. Like I need to think about I need to think about
my wrongdoings, my sins. Innit?
yeah, exactly. But no, but I'm saying obviously it's harder to find religion at like in like when you're
Yeah,
in that 20 to 30 stage, and like obviously because
I agree with
you're going to be like busy with work, you're trying to like have a career, you're trying to like do something, you're trying to do this, that, and the other. Obviously, unless if you're like if you go through like a traumatic experience and like you find God that way, then yeah, maybe. But like I would say like for most people, it's like you get like busy with your daily like life that you just don't really think about religion as much. And even people that are religious, like they kind of like maybe lose themselves in that sense in like their mid like 20s 30s. But I guess like obviously for you it was different because you obviously found religion like recently. That's what I was trying to say like before.
I would say what makes
No,
it.
yeah, it was a fair point because I was just thinking, imagine, so for kids, like, they don't go through a lot, right?
Yeah.
And also, as a kid, you question, like, why am I here? What is my purpose in life? But I feel like when you get to, like, 21, that's when it hits you where you're like, okay, what am I actually doing with my life? So I was thinking maybe in some cases it's actually easier to find religion when you are in your 20s and 30s because you're actually more curious about it, whereas as a kid, like even for me as a kid, I didn't really care. I went to the Gurdwara, which is our holy temple, um for the sake of going because my family went. Now I actually want to go to the Gurdwara. Like I want to go sit in a Gurdwara in Guru Sahib's presence, and I want to take in what I learned from a Gurdwara. Back then I would just go because it'd be fun and games, you know, and mum would go and then be langar and you know langar is food, so you're always just excited about small things. But now it's more than that. But I see what you mean. Yeah, it just life gets so busy. It's just about making time if you want to, I think. Because if you don't want to, then obviously it's difficult.
Yeah.
But I think it's like that with him.
I was also
I wanted
thinking.
to.
Yeah, sorry. I was about that question that you said. I was just thinking that it's hard because we have like set things that we do. Like for example, by the time you're older, like I eat meat and then I'll drink alcohol or like I'll have a certain lifestyle. And then, but if it means if I want to get into religion, I would have to address those things because like for example, in Hinduism, you're not really meant to eat meat, you're not really meant to drink. So it's like there's a certain lifestyle, and if I want to get into my religion, I know I'll have to address that. So I guess there's also some sort of like selfishness behind why I guess people don't really go into religion at
Yeah,
older age.
That's
I think
fair.
that's why I wanted to sort of ask you like what was like, why was it that it's like recently, you said it was like when you were 18 that you like proper got into it. Well, what made you like sort of like switch and like being like, you know what, I want to look at this in a different perspective, in a different angle. So like what made you? Because for me, I still can't understand like like it would be really hard for me to get back into like religion because as a kid you were like you mentioned how you said what was it, as a kid, yeah, you'd go to like temple or like gurdwara just because your parents went, and like you would like it would be like a little trip, like a day out and stuff. It was like that for me as well. But then when I got older, I started to like question. I mentioned it in the religion one as well, but I'll say it again. Like I started to question, like, oh, why am I doing this? What is this about? And I guess because my parents couldn't give me like clear cut answers, I just thought, why am I doing this? Then I didn't think to like research into like further and like know like the true and like the real reason behind it. So like, what I wanted to ask you was like how, like, what made you like find ask these questions and find the answers to them?
So in 2017, I went to India for the first time, which I know I'd only just gone for the first time, which is crazy. And I fell in love with Punjab completely. Like, I did not want to come back at all. And it was because every morning when you'd wake up, the first thing you would hear is prayer, because they would be like out of the speakers and everyone can hear it. And then again, it's the same at night time. That's all you hear. So we went to the Golden Temple, and again, once I was there, I was in awe. Like, I was so speechless. And Kish, you know me, I talk for days, right? I could talk for the whole of England. I was speechless, and I didn't say a word to anyone. To the point where my mum was like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" I walked out, and it just hit me all at once, and I was just like, I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing anymore. Like, that from that day onwards, I'd given up meat, I'd given up eggs. I don't cut the hair on my head. I don't cut any of my hair at all. I try not to. The only hair that I do, still do, and I'll be honest, it's my eyebrows. But I'm learning, and I'll get there one day. But yeah, from that day, I was like, I just want to find Sikhi on a whole nother level. And I flew back to India, from India to England, and I was just so curious. I was learning everything, left, right, and centre. Whatever I could learn, I was just taking it in. I had exams at that period as well, and my first AS exams, I was like, I'm going to fail these. But I don't know, Maraj really helped me through that, because I ended up coming out with half decent A-level results. And then I started to go uni. So I was in my first year of uni, and I started to learn the Banjbanya, which are the 5 prayers that you would do in the morning, Amrit Vela. So that would be before sunrise. And I started to learn how to do them properly, how to recite them properly. And since then I couldn't turn back. Like, it's just a part of me now. If I go a day without praying, I will feel it. Like, it just won't feel right. There was a point in the last few years where I'd just stopped, and it didn't feel right at all. Like, I actually wanted to pray. I wasn't praying for the sake of it. Like, my insides was telling me, go pray. And that's when I realised that Sikhi had like definitely changed me a lot. Like, it got me into a pattern. It's a way of life, and like, I was just so much more calmer with it. And then I got really unwell first year of uni, and I remember I was just so lost. I felt like my uni life was going to go downhill, like socially and then academically as well. But again, my faith has just kept me going. So there's so many different reasons why Sikhi, I'd found Sikhi, and why I'd started looking and reading into Sikhi more. But I think generally it was just going to Punjab and seeing so much history of my Guru Sahibs, and just learning so much from my family, especially from my mum. And I just thought, this is what I want from life. So there's no clear-cut answer really, but also just it's just what I wanted, and now I can't imagine my life without it.
Nah, I think we got the picture. No, but yeah, that's really interesting though, because yeah,
And it's good to see someone so passionate about their religion as well. You know, I'm like looking at you, and I'm like, shit, like I don't care about my religion.
What
as
we
much,
do
innit?
with our lives, like
Do you know
No.
what? It's not bad. It's not. No. It's not bad
No,
to
I
not
know.
have faith.
No, as in, but I do have faith. That's the thing. Like, obviously, I believe in like certain like parts of Hinduism. And obviously, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not trying to actively get back into religion or whatever. But like, I'm just saying, I'm looking at you and I was like, that's crazy. Like the fact that obviously, like you said, you went to India for the first time, like in 17 or 16 or 17. I was like, shit, like. So you were born here as well, and someone to be born here and like being so in touch with their culture as well. It's like quite inspiring, isn't it, for someone like an immigrant, like coming from an immigrant family as well. Like, so it's good to see that. So it's like, even if like maybe like I don't know much about like Sikhi, and obviously we're gonna ask you some questions about this in like now. But I'm saying like, even if I don't know much about it and I might not agree with it or whatever, so with certain points of it, like, I'm just like saying I still respect the fact that you're like so into it, kind of thing. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah.
When I think about it, it's like for me right now with Hinduism, it's not at the forefront of my thought. But then what I find inspiration about you being in touch with your religion is that you have the capacity to pass it on to your kids now, like let's say as well. But while like
that's
now
true.
I'm thinking that that's kind of something that I guess I would think about, because it's like from the next generation onwards, it's going to be lost. Like that culture is basically going to be lost. If I don't address it for myself, then it's not, I'm not going to be able to pass it on or anything. So I guess that's...
Do you know what? It is scary, but you can't, at the same time, you can't force faith. Like, it comes to you when you have a thirst for it. If you're dedicated to learning about your faith, you'll get there eventually. I think everyone feels like there's so much pressure of just being at a certain point where you're, I hate using the term religious, but you're this religious, like that. I don't. The term religious just baffles me. I don't know who created it. Like saying that someone's so religious, so and so is so religious. If you have faith, you have faith. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you follow it to a great extent or a little extent. If you believe that God is there, God is present, you have faith, right? And again, yeah, like you said, the way that we practice it now, this generation, this is how it's going to be passed down to the youngers, the next generation to come. And yeah, I agree. It's actually going missing within our generation, but that's because there's so many distractions. There's so many people feel like they're very restricted when it comes to practicing their faith, because there's so much that they can do in this life, but then religious teachings are telling you don't do it, and you're like, oh, but I kind of want to do it. You grow a bad habit, basically. It's just how much you want it.
Yeah, I guess that's why I think like when Bidan was talking about, like, Bishop was talking about, what's it, like passing on to the next generation. That's why I think our parents sort of like try get back into it as well, because they feel like like during their like 20s and 30s they were trying to like avoid it, or they didn't really take it that seriously. But then once they think about it, like when they get older, they probably think, I'm losing touch of my culture, my heritage, and I want to try and pass that on to my kids now as well. But then by that, I feel like by that point, like because I can see my dad trying to do it to me and my sister. My sister can like she's a bit more religious than me. She proper like listens and like tries to like understand and like learn. But then he's trying to do it to me where I'm like I can't be asked, I don't want to listen to this. like it's not that, it doesn't stick with me that much. But I feel like if I really wanted to try, if I really wanted to do it, I probably would. But we'll see maybe in the future. I don't know. But I'd say moving on from that, I wanted to talk a bit more about your book, and because Bidan was mentioned how like if we could learn a bit more about Sikhism as well, like because the book you wrote it's called 52 Hukams of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
And so if you could tell us like who is Guru Gobind Singh, and like what?
So
yeah.
Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj was our 10th Guru, and before Guruji left their physical being, they left us with the 52 hukums. Hukum meaning a command or an order. Now, when I say 52, you're probably thinking, that's a lot. Because you look at different faiths and they only have like 5 or 10, right?
10 commandments.
10 commandments, yeah. So 52 sounds like a lot, but they're all very linked together. If you're following one hukum, in turn you're following half of another, or you're leading yourself towards following another one. So yeah, again, these were something that I learned from Basics of Sikhi videos when I was probably like 13. I want to say, maybe a bit older, but I reckon about 13, and I didn't know them all off by heart, but I thought if I wrote a post about them on Instagram and I have a highlight, I could just go back through them and read them when I want to. And then, yeah, they just went really well on Instagram. People didn't know that they existed, and then I thought, okay, but this is so important. This is like, you know, if you're a Christian and you're following the 10 Commandments, that is probably one of the first things that you follow, because that's so important. That's something that you need to know. But I felt like we need to know the 52 hukams. As a Sikh, you should know, you know, what Guruji had left for us to learn. And then I did some researching and I've realised that there's not enough resources on it. No one really talks about 52 hukams. So I thought, okay, cool, let's make a book. That's where it came from. And yeah, so Guru Sahib had left us with these 52 hukams. Things like donate a tenth of your earnings, wake up before sunrise to pray. So things like that. But yeah, that's pretty much what the hukams are, what the book is.
Like, you know, with certain thing, like those ones, and like wake up before sunrise, like it's not even like it's such a basic thing, innit? It's like, it's not even that deep, like, and you should be doing that. And then you think like, why would you want to do that? But obviously, like back in the day, like imagine, obviously this is like in Punjab, that way where this was like made, innit? Like obviously you'd wake up early in the morning and you'd go and like tend to the cows, and you'd go to the fields anyway. So it's like one of the, like, do you know what I mean? It's not so. You're naturally doing it, kind of thing. Like, say, and it's such a good thing. Like, it would say, we were talking about Hinduism earlier, and like, you're not allowed to drink alcohol, let's say, but obviously it's not good for you. So it's like the things in religion that is there, like a lot of it does make sense. Some of it, like, you might not agree with. Like, even with Hinduism, like, I don't agree with all of it. So I had a question for you. So is there like, although you can obviously like choose to ignore the question, yeah. As in, like, is there one hukum, like, how that you? Is it like an order? Hukum is like an order.
Yeah, it's basically
Oh,
an order,
yeah, okay. So is there like one that you're a bit like, I don't know about this one, or like the one that you kind of like, obviously you still follow it, but you kind of question it a little bit, like, or like you're like, I don't see like why it's there, kind of thing.
Do you know what? I'm not just saying this because I've come on here as a Sikh woman. I'm saying this genuinely. There hasn't been one thing in Sikhi that I've come across yet that I don't agree with.
Okay.
And I think that's why, even the hukams, I haven't come across one that I've been like, I don't know if I agree with that. And I think that's why my faith is so strong as it is, like, because I haven't come across something that has made me question, oh, I actually don't think that I agree with that, or I think that's wrong. Every hukum that is written, I can see the benefit of it. So there, like we said, waking up before sunrise to pray. Once you get into a pattern of doing it, you realise that is the best time to do it. Basically, the whole world is asleep. No one wakes up before sunrise anymore. There's no distractions. And at that point, it's just you and your prayer. And even things like donate a tenth of your earnings. Why is that not normal? Like, why are we not giving to charity? We should be, you know, as people that have come from backgrounds that, you know, we're doing better off than other people in the world. Why are we not giving back the way we should? If we have the ability to do so, we should do it. And I think I've seen the benefit of basically all of the hukams and following all of them. And I think that's why I've never questioned it. I've never thought that there is one that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
Do you think if you were like, if like later on down the years, like, this is just hypothetical, but do you think if you were to come across like a certain scenario where you were to question like one of them, like how would you how would you sort of like go about it? Like, what do you think you would do? Like, if it like sort of stumped you a bit.
That's whatever God wants me to do in that at that point. Do you know what I mean? I've
Yeah.
left so much of my life in God's hands. So if there is a point in my life where I turn around and I tell my God that I don't agree with this, then I'm assuming that God will just either correct my path or explain it to me, give me a reason why. I feel like everything just happens within God's reasoning. To say that something is Guruji's hukum, that's basically saying that it's Guru's will, like our
Yeah,
God's
yeah.
will. So whatever happens is whatever God wants to happen. And I don't know, I can't see myself ever turning around and saying I don't agree with something. It could happen. It happens to people all the time. And at that point, I don't know, I feel like I would be really, really lost at that point, because you might have to check up on me because something won't be right.
No, I feel like if like the people that like do overcome those things, where like they've sort of like come across those situations where they've like sort of like questioned something and then they've managed to overcome that, I feel like your faith would go stronger if it.
Oh
once
yeah,
it does.
100%.
So
Yeah.
I mean, you could see it as a positive, like sort of like if that does happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, do you know, like I said before, there was a point where I just stopped praying completely, and I felt it, like it just was not normal to me, and I did not like it, and I could see myself turning into the most horrible human being, and I didn't like the way it was going. So I just went straight back into it, and you can really tell when you drift away and you come back, you realise that the love is there a lot more, and you no longer just want to know about God and Sikhi and your faith. You have a desire to do it, and there's a difference there.
So before you mentioned that in one of your podcasts you were addressing like bullying as well in Sikhi as well, and I think that's quite an important thing even for like us, me, Kishor and Bidan, for Hindus as well, because we have one festival called Dasai, where we put tika on our foreheads, and often when people go out, like they might like wipe it off because it's like because it's not like the thing to do in society, right? And one time, so Bidan's dad was driving back from my house to Plumstead, to his house, and there was like a man here, and then it was like one of those road ones where they quickly wipe a car and ask for like £1 or something. They wipe a windscreen,
Yeah.
and then obviously like his dad didn't have change at the time, and then this was time of Dasai basically, where he had the tika on his forehead. And he was like, "Oh, what's that?" And then I was just like, "What the fuck? Like, what the hell? Like, this guy really didn't have to make that comment at all." So I was just wondering.
Hey, when was this, yo? Like, let me go spot that guy, man.
So I was just wondering if you have a story like that, of a case of bullying and due to someone's religion, and how would you advise someone to overcome that?
So the podcast that I did was with Sick Analogy, who is another Instagram account founder, and he's lovely. And there was another one of my friends, Seeking Hope, and again she was lovely. She is lovely. She knows what she's talking about. And for whoever is listening to this, if you're sick and you've gone through bullying, I suggest going to listen to that, because those two individuals knew exactly what they were talking about. As a Sikh, it's very common to grow up because you have long hair, and a lot of young boys will tie their hair in judas, so they'll have their hair like here on, and you'll get called like egghead, towel head, and that's just a norm, and it shouldn't
The PG
be.
ones.
Yeah, exactly, the PG ones. And then so there was a case of a kid, and I think it was in Wolverhampton, and he was pulled by his daughter. His vodka had come off, so the
white bit.
The what?
There's like a thing underneath it, and like isn't there like a white bit underneath?
Yeah, like the cloth. So that was pulled off, and thrown on the floor, and the kid's hair was so long, and we shouldn't have our hair touching the floor. So he was trying to stop his hair from touching the floor. It was just the saddest video to watch, and it went viral for all the wrong reasons. No one was helping the kid. It was horrible to watch, and I think eventually the school came out and apologized for it and said that they'd taken responsibility over it. Eventually it started going viral for the right reasons, but again, I don't think a video of a kid being bullied should be put out there on the internet. The internet is a horrible place if it's used incorrectly. And in that podcast, we basically spoke about our experiences, what we had been through, and Sikh Analogy had talked about his experiences, and he had very similar experiences with bullying, being a Sikh, and basically just telling kids to talk, even like the basic things like just talking to someone. We overlook that so much. If your teachers aren't helping, talking to your parents, things like that, because this bullying in that case had gone on for so long, and the kid didn't tell anyone about it. So advising people to talk, but then also understanding why we keep our hair, because at that point it's so easy to go, forget this, I'm going to cut all my hair off. It's so easy for a kid to go, why am I even keeping my hair? Like, you need to wear your hair as if it's a crown on your head, like, protect it and learn about why we keep it, so that if you go through that one day, you're not inclined to say, I want to cut it all off. I want to take it off my head, because it's all about education and teaching these kids that, do you know what? We go through a lot for this. Our Guru Sahibs had went through a lot for us, so we're gonna continue to go through a lot, and it's not right, it shouldn't be, but it comes down to educating yourself, so knowing why you keep your hair, but then also educating just your friends, like the people around you. So many people wouldn't understand why Sikhs wear turbans. They don't get it, and then they'll see a man with long hair, and they still won't understand it. So it comes down to us just educating other people, but also people taking it in their stride to educate themselves about it. There's another hukum actually that talks about educating ourselves about other faiths, about politics, and it's so important that we do that as humans. That, like, I should learn what Hinduism teaches, I should learn what Islam teaches, what Christianity teaches, so that I'm not one day bullying someone for something that they believe in. I'm not saying something that's going to hurt someone else, whether you mean it or not. So it was advice like that, and the podcast was really nice actually. So if the viewers haven't listened to it, go ahead. But there you go. No, the two people that I was with speaking about it, they know exactly what they're going on about, and they were so helpful. So yeah.
What was the podcast again, if you just want to plug it again?
Should I get the name up? So you can find Sikhi Class podcast. You can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube.
We're slacking.
No, we're on Spotify. We're on there.
And then not on Apple and Google Podcasts. Like,
yeah, we are.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, how do you not know, bro?
Fair enough.
The podcast is called How Sikhs Can Face Bullying and the Power of Unity. Very good podcast.
We'll put it in the link below.
I'm giving you boys homework as well. Go listen to it.
Yeah.
No, after we might. But no, that's very interesting, because like I sort of think, because like we grew up in this society where not many people understand our religion, our background, and then we get made fun of. That's why like we have these, like, we tend to like not like associate with religion that much, because like when I was younger, I didn't want to like for everyone to like know. I was a bit embarrassed about like especially during like what Bishop was talking about during Dase and stuff. Like, yeah, obviously I was embarrassed when I had to like leave my house, and like I had like this big like red tika on my head, and like I had like little plants there. We do that, and like we have to wear these odd hats. Like, but now I take pride in doing that. I associate so much with my culture. But before culture. Sorry.
Immigrant. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm sorry.
you want me to beat that out?
No, I mean it's fine. Like, I mean, I'm an immigrant too. I was just joking. Like, it doesn't matter.
No, what I'm
Like,
saying.
yeah.
But I was saying, yeah, we exactly like. I got like called like weird names like, oh, why are you doing this? You look ridiculous. You look. And then that I feel like that sort of made me like not want to be associated with religion that much because I didn't want to learn because I felt like it was like I was being ostracized and I was like being like, oh, this is weird. Like people will think I'm weird and like I look funny, so I don't really want to do it.
I mean, you still do look weird, man.
Oh, okay.
No, but
that's just because of me though. That's not my religion.
No, but what I was trying to say, I think when you're younger, innit, especially at a young age, like you're just, especially because you just come into the country as well. Like say for me as well, I just come into the country when I was like 10, let's say. So we're trying to like fit into the culture here, and then like having a red dot on your head doesn't really like scream like British, innit? So I think that's mainly why though. At the time, but obviously now I'm like, nah, bun it, man. I even when I was younger, I used to always wear it with pride, like, because like Bishop was saying earlier, now I'd have to travel from like my house, and we used to always go over to his house, and I would have it on. My mum would sometimes like take it off herself, yeah, and I'd be like, nah, man, like I'm putting it on. Like, what they're gonna do? Like, just gonna look at me? I'll look back at them, innit? So it is what it is. Like, I'll just look back at them. So
Yeah.
I used to like obviously take pride in it, but I guess for younger people, like younger kids, when they just came to the country, it's like you're trying to fit in. Like, so you're trying to be like them, but obviously they don't do this shit, so you don't want to like claim it. But yeah, it makes sense.
Fair enough. All right. So you mentioned a bit about your podcast, and I was just gonna ask, like, because we obviously you're part of our podcast, and like we that's something that we share. So like, what I was just gonna ask, like, what do you think like the benefits of having like a podcast is, and like what you can do with it, and like because like we created this podcast to like, so like there'll be more like talks about like, especially because we're all four guys, including Sanjo as well. So like we thought it'd be quite good to have like people from the same background talking about like sort of like racy things, but important things, talking about like social, like sort of taboos, because we touch on that as well. And yeah, like we thought it'd be important, and plus we obviously like to like talk a lot, so so yeah. But I was just asking, yeah, how come? What do you think is the benefits of that?
For me, it was just creating like a safe space for Sikhs to talk. I feel like there's so much judgment everywhere, in every culture, in faith, whatever it is. People are just waiting to judge, right? And I just wanted to create somewhere where people could come and talk, or just listen to a podcast and think, I'm not going to get judged for feeling this way. There's going to be the odd person that comments something spiteful, but a lot of the time I just delete it, because it's just not what Sikhi Class is about, or our podcast is about. We want people to listen, and you know, if you agree or disagree, have healthy discussions. You know, talk about it. What do you think? Not why do you think like that? Not like aggressive. So yeah, that was basically why, and it's created a lot of healthy discussions. I think I get quite a lot of DMs from people that have not agreed with what someone has said on my podcast, but they've not said it in an aggressive way. They've said, okay, I don't agree with this, but this is actually what I think. And a lot of the time I'll be like, do you know what? You come and do a podcast with me. Let's talk about it again. And you tell me what you think. Because if you think that way, someone else is going to think the same way. And that's literally what it's about. It's about making sure that you're not getting hated for what you believe in and what you think. I mean, unless you're like planning on killing someone or something like that, which is actually bad. And then, you know what, if you get hated a bit for it, then fine. But yeah, things like, I'm trying to think, I did a podcast about happiness and like how to find your happiness. And I had people say, actually, that didn't work for me, but this is what did. And it's just nice to hear like, okay, what I spoke about in the podcast, what my guest spoke about in the podcast, that might not work for them, but they found something else. So I could include that next time, or I can get them to come and talk about it. I won't just do my podcast with people that are well known. I'd do it with anyone who decides that they want to speak about Sikhi. Like, let's do it. Tell me when you're free. Let's talk.
So how often do your podcast? Like, is it like weekly, monthly? Is it just like random?
Do you know what? When I was doing it, it was weekly.
Oh, okay.
I will get back into it. I'm waiting for, honestly, just a moment where I can schedule in some time because I do want to get back into it. But I was uploading every Wednesday for a few months. I'm on season 2 now, and I think I'm like 6 episodes in. And there's 13 episodes of each season. So yeah, I will get back into it eventually. But when I was posting, it was weekly on a Wednesday.
Yeah, fair enough. We're on season 2 as well.
Yeah, we're in season 2.
Yeah.
We're
Episode
catching up.
4 in it or what?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
Cool, I
we're-
better start recording.
You have 2 weeks left to like get ahead of us. Otherwise, we're catching up.
Oh dear. I'll get back into it.
So, like, seeing as you're like very busy person, you got a podcast, you got like a mad Instagram account, you got a book. Is there any new developments you can give us a little sneak peek behind or anything that you're doing?
Another
Oh,
book.
could I give you a speak? Oh, okay. Let me think about this carefully because I don't want to get in trouble.
Ooh.
Um,
Little
there are a
BTS.
lot of. Okay, I'll put it like this. There's a lot of ideas.
Mm.
There are a lot of things that I want to do, and I've been motivated to do because of the first book and the amazing support that I've received from it from Ranjit Benji, my publisher, my family, my friends, and then people that just follow Sikhi Class and have loved it. Maybe summertime I'm looking towards something. That's all I'm going to say for now because nothing's concrete, but
All
you're
I'm
not
saying
going to
is-
get it out of me.
No, I'm saying all I'm saying. If you need a director in it, I'm here.
Do you know what? Yeah, do you know what? Next year we're going to have a film out. It's going to be a whole thing.
But yeah, I think that was a really lovely conversation, Simran. So thank you for
No, thank
being
you.
a guest.
Thank you for
coming
letting
along.
me annoy you for the last however long it's
No,
been.
Enlightening, more like.
In line.
Yeah, it was really good.
Really,
And
really
obviously,
Cute.
thank you for your time.
And I think
as well, yeah.
Should we finish
Now
off?
to finish off, we'll do as always, into the jar. So I think
Into
'cause
the
it's,
square, G.
into the square. Sorry. Yeah.
So have you watched the Into the Square segment of the show, or have you not like gotten that far?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I haven't gotten that far. I watched the religion one, but that was when you posted it. And then I was
okay.
meaning to watch the last 2 that you posted. I told Kish as well I was gonna listen to them,
Yeah.
but I get to like a certain point, and then I'm like, okay, next one.
Yeah.
I
No.
tried to keep up with all of your discussions, but like not fully.
No, it's
But
calm.
I
So
probably should.
Chat a lot of
what we
shit.
have at the end of an episode is obviously just Into the Square. So this is why it's called Into the Square. I mean, I'll let Kishor explain and you what going.
Spitting.
Well, yeah. So basically, we have this little sort of segment that we have where we put like random questions in a jar, and then we call
Okay.
it Into the Square because it's a square jar. With Bishop and
More
Cheryl.
rectangle, but alright, I see what you're doing there.
little think outside the box, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, there you go. That one is actually a
Yeah.
square. Alright, fair enough.
So like we put questions like, and you could be ask any questions. Usually we just try to catch everyone else out, but
Alright.
and then we pick a question, and then before we pick a person for the person to answer, and then we read the question out, and then they have to answer basically. So
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Alright.
Bishop's turn.
Okay,
Bishop.
yeah. So I've got a question, and obviously that because Simran's our guest today, and it's my only opportunity to ask her a question.
Targeted.
There's something.
I feel like I'm a
something
victim.
not too hard.
Yeah, go on.
So,
Go on, hit me with it.
So you just my question is for you. Just tell us about your favorite childhood memory.
Aww.
It's cute.
That is interesting. Do I link it to Sikhi or just anything?
Just anything.
Wait,
Just like
Doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to
be.
Oh, I feel like I should link it to Sikhi though, innit? Just because I'm on here in Sikhi class. I think the best childhood memory that I have to do with Sikhi would be there was one time where, and it was Vaisakhi, which is a religious festival. This is like the birth of the Khalsa, so it's a massive celebration in Sikhi, and we went to the Gurdwara with the kids, and at this point, this was before COVID, everyone was coming. It was just loads of fun, loads of kids, and as a kid, you seeing other kids, you're excited. You see all your friends. We had fireworks, we had food for days. It was just honestly, it was one of the greatest moments that I've had at a Gurdwara because it was just so calming. And there was another time where we had a Rain Sabai, which is basically when you pray overnight. And you start at you can start at 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. And I've never felt as connected to Sikhi prior to that. So that night was just amazing for me. I went with a friend, and it was just so nice. I can't really put it into words, and anyone that is of a faith will understand what I mean by when you have that moment where you really connect to God, you just can't put it in words. You can't describe it. That feeling is something that you just keep to yourself, because you just can't describe it to anyone. That night was, something that I'll carry on with me for forever, and I'm definitely going to take my kids to loads of dance spies because I just need to go to more.
You're going for yourself then.
Yeah, not gonna lie, it's more for me.
Yeah.
That's mad though.
Let me ask you that question. No, I'm gonna turn this around. You tell me your favorite.
Nah, we'll tell you when you come onto your podcast, a Sikhi Class, innit?
Exactly.
Fair enough.
All right. Yeah, that was interesting to hear, Simran. But yeah, I think so thank you for coming on to the podcast. We've learned a lot about Sikhism. We've learned a lot about your life and your background. And I think it's been quite inspirational for us as well, because I don't know anyone that's released a book and done all this amazing stuff. And then I think it was very good to have you as a guest on as our first guest, because it's quite impressive what you've done at your age, and then and with such a short span of time as well, what you managed to achieve. So I think that's just exceptional.
Oh, thank you.
So,
You might have to come on for episode 2 just so we can get more information out of you, innit?
You just tell me when you need me and I'll be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you guys for listening. You can find Simran at Sikhi Class on YouTube and Instagram, and you can get her book, The 52 Hukams of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. It'll be in the link in the description below if you want to check it out, if you want to
all 27 viewers, innit?
Oh, I get a link in the description.
You can be at the top if you want.
You can be at the top, bro. You can be in the title.
First line. I need to be first line in that description.
Yeah. So thank you guys.
Yeah, obviously make sure you go check her out though, and again, thank you for your time as well from all of us here.
Thank you guys for listening, and thank you guys for coming and hosting with me.
Yeah,
we'll
thank
see
you for
in the next one then.
Bye.
informative episode. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.